From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott in recent months has taken some visits to Iowa, one of the first presidential voting states. But on Wednesday, he took the biggest step yet toward launching a 2024 campaign, announcing that he was setting up an exploratory committee. Here's a piece of the video he dropped this morning.
I know America is a land of opportunity, not a land of oppression. I know it because I've lived it. That's why it pains my soul to see the Biden liberals attacking every rung of the ladder that helped me climb. If the radical left gets their way, millions more families will be trapped in failing schools, crime-ridden neighborhoods, and crushing inflation. Not on my watch.
Kate, what do you think that Tim Scott brings to the presidential primary? And I guess my 2 cents would be maybe a sense of optimism from a Republican with traditional sort of Reaganite Republican views, and maybe somebody who can bridge the gap between the populist Trumpy side of the party and more traditional Republicans.
Yeah, Kyle, I have to say, as an opening pitch, there were compelling elements of that. Tim Scott has a great personal biography from a modest background in South Carolina that a lot of people in America can identify with. He also has been constructive in the Senate on tax reform, on criminal justice reform. He does have a record there he could point to, unlike some other senators, and senators in general tend to be less experienced than governors. He also, I think, has a unique opportunity to lower the national temperature on divisive issues. And clearly, he thinks a central feature of his pitch is an optimistic view of the country, which historically speaking for the Republicans, we know has been an electoral winner. So I think there is potentially a lot of ferment in this concept that the country's economic and social problems are real, but they are solvable, and that there is still a great amount of opportunity in this country waiting to be unleashed. So I think this is a salutary development for the primary. And I just add one more quick point, which is that there has been some talk in GOP circles of clearing the field for Ron DeSantis, who seems to be one of the more compelling candidates against Trump. But I think this is a classic example of why Republicans deserve to meet the competition and make an informed choice.
Kim, what's your view of this? And one caveat that I would add is that I still think, to a lot of people, Senator Scott is undefined on many issues. I mean, what is the Tim Scott foreign policy? I think even people who closely follow politics probably don't really have a specific answer to that question. And he's going to need to put some flesh on those bones pretty quickly. There's news in the last few days that the first Republican primary debate for 2024, the Republican National Committee has now announced, will be in August in Milwaukee. So 4 months away, and the RNC has not released criteria for that debate yet. One of the things that has been floated is a requirement that all of the candidates pledge that they will support the eventual nominee, even if it isn't them, before they're allowed on the debate stage. But Kim, 4 months does not give Senator Scott or other new entrants a whole lot of time to get their briefing books together and get prepped for that debate.
Yeah, expect to see a number of other people begin to jump in here sooner rather than later, too, so that they can be prepared for that race. And, we still have a lot of people that are potentially going to get in. You've got Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, Mike Pence, the former Vice President, Ron DeSantis, obviously. But here's what Tim Scott's got going in his favor. I agree with Kate entirely and you that this voice of optimism is something that is a bit unique in these current times. A lot of the Republicans that are in already, Nikki Haley, Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, there's still a lot of anger contained in their bids, very reflective of a lot of Republican voters these days. I get it. But I do think that there is a real yearning out there, and not just among the Republican base, but also among people that have been a bit skeptical of the party, given Trump at the head of it, as to where it's headed, that this optimism is really something that has a real shot at getting some people's attention. Another thing he has going in his favor, he is loved by donors. Watch those numbers in the coming days. By the way, he ended at the end of last year 2022 with $22 million in hand. And that was after a re-election race to reclaim his Senate seat last year, which he did easily. So he's got the potential to get some real donors on side. I agree with you that what's lacking is a fully fleshed out idea of what Tim Scott is. This introductory message, unsurprisingly, was a great deal about his personal biography and his overall vision of sort of optimism and unity. Although, by the way, he did take some real shots at Democrats, although interestingly, really kind of pummeled them for not believing in the American dream. So even that was part of his unity message. In terms of his actual policies, if you look back in his tenure in the Senate, he was instrumental in the 2017 tax cuts, in particular, crafting what are known as opportunity tax credits, which go to struggling urban areas, trying to revive them. This is part of a broader agenda that he has pushed over the years, which he calls a poverty agenda, an anti-poverty agenda, really trying to get the GOP a little bit more focused on those who are missing out on economic opportunity and how the party can put together proposals that actually help them without government handouts. He was also very much in the center of the discussion after George Floyd's death about a policing bill that ultimately collapsed, but he's been engaged in criminal justice discussions. The rest of it is still a little unknown. He made a point in his introductory speech of saying he was going to be tough on China. But what does that actually mean? Where does he stand on Russia and Ukraine? What's his overall foreign policy vision? Domestic issues. What's his next idea for taxes? How does he feel about regulation? What's his view on the Supreme Court? There's a lot that he's going to have to bring to people to make them feel a little bit more confident about what he is and what he would do as president. But one thing that just really struck me about this is a lot of people have been talking about Tim Scott as a guy who maybe would launch a bid so that he could possibly be considered as a vice president. The introductory video I saw today of Tim Scott looks like a guy who, if he's in it, he wants the nomination.